Tater Guy Private Eye. It was a drizzly, gray kind of day in this tiny one-tractor town, but I had an itch under my skin that something big was about to happen. Oh, who am I? They call me Guy, Tater Guy, Private Eye. I'm a detective and can root out the truth wherever it may be planted. On this particular day, I was in my office doing what all good detectives do in their downtime, nothing. Business was slow, and I was waiting for a case when she walked in. She was the kind of dame that could knock a tater off its feet, if a tater had feet. The scent of cinnamon took my breath as she stepped closer to my desk. Her name was Sweetie Sweet. She owned the highly regarded landmark called Sweetie Sweet's All-You-Can-Eat Gourmet Buffet and Tanning Salon. Yes, culture is what we're all about. I asked her what she needed, and she said, "Oh, Tater Guy, you have to help me. I came to you because I knew you were the best detective in town." "I'm the only detective in town," I replied. "Oh, you're right," she agreed. "I'm sorry, but I'm just so upset. My fine establishment has just gone up in flames. You're the only one who can help me find the menace who committed this horrible crime. You're also short, round, and orange, just my type of guy." She stepped toward my chair. Her words dripped with honey. I knew she was just trying to butter me up, but I decided to play along. "Listen, sweetheart," I said, "just give me the facts. No flowery mumbo-jumbo, just plain, hard facts." "Well," she remarked briskly as she moved back to her original position, "I woke up earlier than usual this morning, and something about today just didn't feel right. I got dressed and decided to go on down to my shop. When I got there, it was just a pile of smoldering ashes." At this point, she took out a handkerchief with SS sewn on it and began to sob. "I was afraid something like this was going to happen," she continued as she reached into her purse. "A few weeks ago, I received this letter." She handed me a folded piece of paper. I opened it and read, "Leave $5,000 in the hollow oak at City Park. Make sure it is in small bills. If you do not, you will be sorry." I immediately noticed that this note had been typed on an old-fashioned typewriter that dropped its Y. The paper also smelled strongly of cinnamon, which I guessed came from Sweetie's purse. "Well, Miss Sweet," I began. "Oh, please," she interrupted. "Just call me Sweetie." "Okay then, Sweetie," I continued. "I want to take a look at the crime scene. Do you mind if I keep this note?" "Not at all," she said. "I want you to keep it. Anything that can help catch this criminal. See you around. Oh, and thanks, Tater Guy. You're the cat's meow." "I hate cats," I said. "Cats make me sneeze." "Well, then you're the bee's knees." "I'm scared of bees. Bees make my eyes puffy." "Oh, I give up," said an exasperated Sweetie. "All I'm trying to say is that you're one super spud, Tater Guy." She blew me a kiss and shut the door. It was the kind of kiss that can make a tater go weak at the knees, if a tater had knees. The scent of cinnamon still lingered heavily in the room. I made my way out into the overcast streets and headed for the site of Sweetie Sweet's All-You-Can-Eat Gourmet Buffet and Tanning Salon. When I got there, Chief Beauregard and his team were wrapping up the preliminary investigation. The scene looked bad, but I had seen worse. My gut told me that the culprit was no professional arsonist. This was an amateur job, and a bad one at that. "Excuse me, Tater Guy?" a voice behind me said. It was Chief Beauregard's deputy, Nancy Hall. Tall and thin, with that girl-next-door charm. She was no Sweetie Sweet, but then, not many dolls are. "Hi, Nance," I said. What have you and the chief found?" "Oh, not that much. You're free to look around all you want. This place is a total loss. One thing's for sure, though. If Miss Sweet ever wants to rebuild, she'll have the capital to do it." "Is that so? How?" I asked. "According to Mr. O'Henry at the Dewey, Cheatham and Howe Insurance Agency, she's in for a nice chunk of change from the policy she had on this place." "Is that a fact?" I questioned, wondering exactly how Miss Sweetie intended to use that chunk of change. "Yeah," Nancy replied. "You can't run a business like Miss Sweet's nowadays without good insurance to back you up." Just then a car horn sounded. "Sorry, Tater Guy, but I have to run," Nancy continued. Now that Sweetie's shop is gone, we have to find the chief another place to buy double chocolate fudge mocha ripple cream donuts with coconut sprinkles, and it is not going to be easy. See you later." "Bye, Nance," I called, and turned my attention back to the smoldering pile of rubble. The police had been over the area thoroughly, and there really wasn't that much to see, or so I thought. I noticed a charred piece of paper lying near me, so I bent down to pick it up. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a corner of one of Sweetie's menus. It read, "Daily Special, chocolate pie with..." The rest had been burned, but I recognized the print. It had been typed on the same typewriter as Sweetie's threatening letter, the one that dropped its Y. I had a sneaking suspicion that something was rotten in Denmark, but then I wasn't in Denmark, so I shook the feeling and continued my search. Soon I was rewarded with a jewel of a clue. What else would you expect to find at the scene of a fire but a book of matches? But this was no ordinary over-the-counter matchbook. It had been personalized. The front read, "Joe's Juke and Jive Joint," and the back, "Number 17 Wildwood Road." I knew the place. It was on the seedy side of town, where trouble lurks at every corner and respectable taters dare not go. However, I was in the line of duty, so I headed for Number 17 Wildwood Road. While I was walking, looking down at the ground, I saw a piece of paper caught in a soft breeze flutter across the sidewalk. "I hate litter," I said to myself as I stooped to pick it up. I turned it around for a closer look and found that it was a ticket receipt for the 5 o'clock train out of town. The same soft breeze that first brought the paper to my attention also brought me the faint scent of cinnamon. I knew where this had been. I didn't like what I was thinking, but it was the only explanation I could muster. From a distance, I heard the faint chinging of a bell. I knew it was Hernandez, the paper boy. I jerked out my trusty pen and began to write a hasty note on the back of the receipt. As Hernandez rode past me on his bike, I hailed him to stop. "Find Chief Beauregard," I said, "and give him this note for me. He'll know what to do." "Sure thing, Tater Guy," Hernandez replied, and sped off to find the chief. I stuffed the pen into my pocket and continued on my way to Joe's. When I opened the door, the musty smell was enough to knock a tater's socks off, if a tater could wear socks. However, I had my nose tuned to one scent and one scent only: cinnamon. I wandered nonchalantly around the room, pausing and sniffing at each table. When I reached the darkest corner, I had found what I was looking for. There was an empty seat at the table, and I sat down across from the man draped in shadows. I couldn't see his face, but I didn't have to. I knew who it was. Darby, a conniving, sniveling, low-down wannabe crook. He had never actually committed a crime, but he always seemed to be on the lookout for a way to break the law. "What do you want with me, Tater Guy?" Darby asked in that husky tone that he used with men of the law. He was always trying to sound tough. "I want the truth, Darby," I said. "Who burned Sweetie's shop?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Darby said. "I didn't see nothing." I chuckled silently to myself and then replied, "Sure you did, Darby. You know it, I know it, and Sweetie knows it. That's why she came to see you here." Darby looked surprised, and I smiled before I continued. "Oh, she was here. I can still smell the cinnamon." "Look, Tater Guy," Darby rasped, "you ain't got nothin' on me." "I wouldn't bet on that, Darby," I said. "I'm sure Sweetie's singing a pretty tune right now to Chief Beauregard about how you sent her that extortion note and then torched her place. Now listen, you," Darby began, but never finished. At that moment, Chief Beauregard and Nancy Hall marched into Joe's with Miss Sweetie Sweet in tow. Wholeheartedly believing that they had come to take him away, Darby jumped up from his chair and started screaming at the top of his lungs, "It's a lie! It's a lie! Whatever she told you, don't believe it. She did it. She wrote that note about the $5,000 and then she burned her own place to the ground. I saw her. I was watching. When she found out I knew too much, she came and told me she'd pay me half the insurance money if I'd promised to keep quiet. She's the culprit. She did it all." "Shut up, Darby," Sweetie shouted in a tone that I had not heard from her before. "I told you to keep quiet. This was my big chance. With that insurance money, I was going to leave this sinkhole of a town on the 5 o'clock train and open an international chain of Sweetie Sweets, all-you-can-eat gourmet buffet and tanning salons. It was my lifelong dream, and now my hopes are dashed. All my hard work has gone down the drain." Chief, I said, I believe that a quick search of her house will turn up the typewriter she used for the extortion note. You shouldn't have gone to Tater Guy to help you, Miss Sweet, said Chief Beauregard. He outsmarted you. It was his idea that we go down to the train station and wait for you to show. The chief grabbed Sweetie and clamped handcuffs on her. I think we have all the evidence we need to put this lady behind bars for quite a while, the chief continued. Darby, I'll need you to come with us, however, just to wrap up a few loose ends. As they escorted Sweetie out the door, she turned and blew me another kiss. I stood, planted in my place, for quite some time. Then I headed out into the rain. It was the kind of rain that could chill a tater to the bones, if a tater had bones. I could still smell cinnamon. I couldn't get her out of my mind. Sweetie's memory haunted me like a cartoon melody. Just like a bad penny, I knew she would turn up. Someday, somehow, our paths would cross again. She's just that kind of dame, and I'm just that kind of spud. So I'll be here, carrying on in this one-tractor town, doing what I do best. That's why they call me Guy, Tater Guy, Private Eye. For consultation, call 1-800-THE-SPUD. All major credit cards accepted. Not licensed in the states of New Jersey, Colorado, and California.